Yeah, so hi everyone, and welcome to our series where we interview computer science faculty about their job search and interview experience to basically help future faculty candidates with their job search. And today we are here with Pinxia He, who will soon start as an assistant professor at the Chinese University of Hong Kong, Shenzhen. His research interests are in software engineering, in programming languages, natural language processing, deep learning, and also blockchain. So Pincha, congratulations to your new position, and it's great to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me to this series.
Yeah, great. So when will you move?
You mean move back to China?
Right.
Yeah, I will move in this fall, so it's in September.
And I guess you also have to quarantine after coming back for a while, right?
Yeah, the current policy is that I need to quarantine for 2 weeks in Shanghai, so where I arrived, and another week in Shenzhen, so it's like 21 days.
Quite some time.
Yeah,
So
and I need to teach remotely in the first 3 weeks.
And what have your moving preparations been so far? Did you, for example, already look for apartments or so?
Yeah, actually, the university they have some apartments on campus, but as far as I know, that there's already a quite long waiting list for that, and probably I will find some apartments near the university, so near the campus, and it's easy to find a good apartment nearby actually. So that's not a big problem for me.
As a general question, I've also heard about this before that some Chinese universities provide also housing. Is this something that is common in China?
Yeah, it's like in China, I think many universities will have their own like housing or own apartments, buildings. And that also depends on how many are still available. Because for some universities, although they have quite a few apartments for their faculty, but they're already like occupied. So for those cases, probably you still need to find apartments like nearby. Yeah.
Okay.
And like in terms of price, it's like in terms of the rent, it will be much cheaper than what you can find outside. So usually it could be like half the price of what you can find like outside.
Okay, that sounds really nice. And I guess it's also convenient because you live very close then to
Yeah.
your office and so.
Yeah.
Yeah, so how have you prepared for your new role so far?
Already feel the difference between working as a postdoc or PhD and working as a faculty. The major difference is that as a faculty, you have a lot of little stuff to handle. So, for example, you may have more meetings, either with your potential students or applicants.
I see. And you have already started working with students in Shenzhen, or?
Yeah, I will have one PhD student in the coming fall, and because he is very active and he wants to already work on some projects now, so we currently remotely collaborate, and we meet every week online, and we can discuss the projects or what we should do next, and he will report his progress in the last week. So yeah, it's an interesting experience.
Okay, yeah, that sounds great if you already have such an enthusiastic student.
Yeah.
And in terms of grants writing, did you also already start working on this?
Yes, it's like after accepting the offer, so they recommend me to apply for some fundings in China, such as the NSFC funding and some talent plans in China. And recently, I also tried with a CCF Huawei funding. So I applied for free fundings possibly now.
I see. Okay, that's already quite a lot. And can you also give us an overview of the academic system in China? Because you already started mentioning the different grants, for example. So what are the funding institutions? How does the career progression typically work and so on?
I think in China, we have two different kinds of funding. One is from the government and one is from industry, from the companies. And what may be the most important for us, for faculties in China, will be the fundings given by the government. That is kind of a paper acceptance. It's kind of a recognition of you as a faculty. And in China, the top funding is supported by NSFC, and they will have different fundings for different faculties. For example, for me, I will apply for NSFC's funding for young faculties, and they still have funding for senior people, and they also have some key fundings for those top researchers or top faculties with a big group in China. So that means it's like they have different levels of fundings for different for faculties in different career steps.
I see. So with that, it's, I guess, a bit similar to ERC, which also has this different kind of
starting
levels.
And yeah.
Right. And yeah, you mentioned also the CCF Huawei grant. So what is that?
That is kind of funding like supported by both CCF. CCF is the kind of an organization about computer science in China. And Huawei is a big company in China, so they kind of cooperate and then have this funding for young faculty in China and try to find out those research problems or interesting research fields that are important for Huawei, and both important for Huawei and also for our research field in SE. So it's kind of a cooperation between like academic and industry. So it's like the company will provide us with data and some real research questions in their company. I think that's a good style of research, especially for us as a software engineering researcher.
Right, yeah, sounds mutually beneficial.
Yes.
And about the ranks, so do you have the tenure track system in China?
Yes, that's a bit different from what from the universities overseas, because we kind of have two systems. We can call them like old system and new system. So for old system, we don't have tenure track. The title you will have when you enter the university is a lecturer, and then you become an associate professor and full professor. And there's nothing called tenure at that time. And usually when you work as a lecturer, it's very likely for you to stay and become an associate professor. So there's nothing like a 6-year like fixed term period for you.
I understand. Okay.
Yeah, and for the new system, it's more like a US style or overseas style. It's a assistant professor first for 3 years, and then you can continue. Then you have renew your contract for another 3 years, and then you have your tenure evaluation, and then if you get promoted, you become a tenured associate professor. Yeah, and then full professor. So this new system is very similar to other universities outside of China.
I see. And the Chinese University of Hong Kong, Shenzhen, which of the systems do they adopt? I guess the newer one, right?
Yeah, they adopt a new system. So many policies or like mechanisms there is similar to Chinese University of Hong Kong in Hong Kong. And many senior people in the CHK Shenzhen are from US. So they also try to like learn from the good things of the US systems. So like basically everything is, you can call them in a new system now.
And I'm also curious to learn a bit more about funding. So because, for example, there is the US system where you're typically supposed to fully fund your students through external funds, I believe. And for example, I will move to Singapore, and there, many students will be funded, for example, directly by government grants. So there is some kind of base funding. Where on this scale is funding in China typically. So do you also have some base funding for students, or are you supposed to externally fund most of your students?
We will have startup funding for new faculty. And for the first 3 years, we can use the startup funding to fund our students. And after the first 3 years, we will possibly use like either funding from NSFC or other government funding, or from the industrial fundings. Yeah, and for CHK Shenzhen, like for our school, so I work in SDS, School of Data Science. The school will cover like the first year PhD student for you. So for all the first year PhD student in your group, they will be covered by the university or by the school.
Oh, that's nice. Okay. Is it also that students are then centrally admitted, or can you basically hire them independently?
I think our mechanism is that we have a hiring committee. So for all the students that want to do PhD here, you need to first apply in the system. Then the hiring committee will take a look at your CV, those stuffs, and do a like kind of the first filtering. So after the filtering, they will like send your CVs to the supervisors that you claim that you want to follow or work with. And then the supervisor can decide whether to fund you or not. If you were filtered out by the committee, there's still a chance that your intended supervisor can argue for you. So yeah, that's kind of the basic process.
I think it's a funny anecdote to tell. So I know that while staying in Europe, you bought cats, right? And
yes.
So what's your plan with the cats? How will you get them back to China?
Yeah, it's interesting. I have 2 cats here, and they are both more than 1 year old now. And I just shipped them back to China this week, actually.
I see. And yeah, how did it work?
The first thing I can like come up with is very expensive. So yeah, in total they cost around 5,000 Swiss francs. So it's kind of close to a business class ticket for human from Switzerland to China. Yeah,
perhaps even more expensive, right?
Yeah.
You basically had an agency, or how did you organize?
So I need to contact 2 agencies. So one agency in Switzerland and one agency in China. So for the agency in Switzerland, they were responsible for taking the cats for health check and get the health certificate. That's the most important thing that to allow you to get on flight. And then they also need to collect your pet's passports and confirm that the names on the passport is you or the one that will receive the cat in China. Yeah. And then after that, after the health check, they will send the cats to the plane. So for my cats, it's a direct plane. It's the direct flight from Switzerland to Beijing. So after that, when they arrive in Beijing, then we need to ask for the help from the second agency in China. So my agency in China is like, they do the clearance. So they need to make sure that everything reported is correct. And there are some supporting documents and all the things are consistent. And they also need to provide the passport of the receivers to the government to make sure that it's really our own cats. Yeah. And after that, they will be allowed to move in Beijing, and the cats stay one night in Beijing because usually we don't want to fly at noon because now it's very hot in China. Mm-hmm. So after that, like night in Beijing, they fly from Beijing to Shenzhen. Yeah, and now this afternoon the cats arrived.
I see. Yeah, sounds quite complicated. So I guess that's something to be aware of, right? If you have pets and you move to a new location, that you also have to take care about these kind of things.
Yes, yeah, I would recommend you like start at least 1.5 months earlier or 2 months earlier before your leave.
Yeah, I briefly already mentioned that you're currently in Europe. So what's your career path now before starting your new assistant professor position?
Currently, I'm working as a postdoc at ETH Zurich, same as you. And before coming here, I obtained my PhD degree from Chinese University of Hong Kong in the Hong Kong campus. Yeah. And before that, I did my undergrad study in South China University of Technology. So it's one of the top universities in Guangdong province in China.
And what about your research direction?
I mainly work on software engineering, also same as you. And specifically, I work on software testing and AI ops. So for software testing, I mainly work on testing AI software, such as finding translation errors automatically in Google Translate and Bing Microsoft Translator. And for AI ops, that means we use some AI algorithms to help operators. For example, we can analyze the software logs and automatically report suspicious cases, such as anomalies, to the operators to help them make the decision.
Mhm. Can you give us an overview of the academic landscape in Shenzhen?
So Shenzhen now it's a city growing super fast, and many things are among the top in China. But if we need to like say some weaknesses of Shenzhen, one will be the medical treatment, and other will be the education. So that means we also have a lot of room to improve, and we also have a lot of chances. A few years ago, Shenzhen only have like Shenzhen universities, South Tech. I cannot name the third. Yeah, it's they have very few good universities a few years ago, but in the recent like 5 to 6 years, and more university having campus in Shenzhen. So including the Chinese University of Hong Kong. So we have CUHK Shenzhen now, and we also have Tsinghua University also has a research institute now in Shenzhen. As far as I know, like more and more universities in Hong Kong are opening up like new campus here.
You will now work at the Chinese University of Hong Kong, Shenzhen, and you also did your PhD at the campus in Hong Kong. Like, how would you compare basically these two institutions, and also are they like completely two different universities, or are there some common projects, for example, going on?
Actually, now the two campuses are working partially independently, I should say. Mm-hmm. So it's not for like student applications, they're different. So for CUHK Hong Kong, they mainly get undergraduate students from Hong Kong. And for the CUHK Shenzhen, they mainly get undergraduate students from China, from mainland China. Yeah. And for the faculty hiring, they are independent. So it's like different campus have different hiring process and system. Yeah. These parts are different. For many other parts, they're similar. For example, the course setting. So like in the two campus, they have similar courses provided for the same major. And the whole system is very similar.
And talking about courses, what will your teaching load be?
Our teaching load will be 2.5 for 1 year. And for the first year faculty, we have 2 courses a year.
And you already mentioned it. The Chinese University of Hong Kong, Shenzhen, is a quite recent university. So if I remember correctly, I think it was established 2012 or so. So how did this basically influence the process?
Yeah, I think it's initiated or planned in 2012. Actually, it was born in 2014 to 2015, around that time.
Oh, so it's really super young.
Yeah, it's a very young university.
So how did this influence the process? Is it, for example, that also most of the people that have started there as faculty members, are they like fresh assistant professors from overseas, or how did this basically influence the whole experience that you have had so far?
Yeah, CHK Shenzhen has both senior faculties and junior faculties. So for those senior faculties, such as full professors, most of them are hired from overseas universities, such as US universities and like universities either like in Hong Kong campus or in Europe. So it's like they are finding senior people from all the world and try to convince them to join CHK Shenzhen. And for the junior faculties, it's similar to other places. So they hire, currently they are mainly hiring candidates with either PhD experience or postdoc experience outside of China. So such as like US universities or universities in Hong Kong, Singapore, or Europe.
And in terms of language, is the communication language Mandarin or English? And also with teaching, will the classes be taught in?
Yeah, everything is in English in CHK Shenzhen.
Ah, okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, because they, as I mentioned, they try to learn the good things from universities outside of China. So I think English should be a very important thing to consider, because when you do some graduate study, you read papers, all these stuff, give talks are in English. So that's why we use English as our official language, and all the courses and communication are in English.
In terms of research style and Chinese universities, like, are there any differences to note? For example, I mean, you had some experience now in Europe, also in the US and in Hong Kong. So do you think, is there a difference in style between these different kind of institutions?
CHK Shenzhen and CHK Hong Kong share very similar style. And if we need to say one difference, is that I feel like universities in Hong Kong focus more on the numbers. So they like to count how many top conferences papers you have published. That's very clear. And I think in Europe, my experience is that at least in our group, we focus more on impactful work or important questions, research fields. So I think that would be one difference. Yeah. And for CHK Shenzhen, since I haven't started working there, but as far as I know, the president and vice president stressed that we will consider more about your impact in your field instead of the number of papers published.
I see. Okay.
So, and they even mentioned that, like, if you publish too many, but the quality is not good, that would be a negative thing.
Okay.
And we will possibly be evaluated by our peers in the world in some like very key evaluations, such as tenure. So I think the impact will be the most important.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, I guess connections are important always for interviewing and this kind of things. But having lived in China, I also know that connections and networking is especially important there. So yeah, how important would you say is networking and contacts when applying for institutions, for academic positions in China?
Yeah, that's a great question. My feeling is that actually not only in China, but also if you want to go to the job market in the world, connection is so important, because once they know you well, they can write you letters and they can recommend you and even support you. And I think in China, it also depends on what kind of universities you are interviewing. For example, such as for those for those universities with new mechanisms like the tenure check systems, I think it's more depend on your record. It's pretty similar to the other places in the world. And for some of those traditional mechanism universities, networking is a bit more important compared to other places.
Makes sense. Yeah, great. We've now chatted a bit about some general things. So I would say let's continue with preparing the application materials and applying for positions.
Sure.
And as a first question, what were your considerations when applying for institutions? Based on what criteria did you select them?
For me, I think several things. One is the location. That's very important because I have the two-body problem. So that's the one thing I need to consider, the location. Another is the reputation or the ranking of the universities, because that may affect like what kind of students you will get. So I want to work with great students. So I will consider also the reputation and ranking. Another, I think there are other two issues. One is the current faculties in the universities, like in your department, who will you be working with? That's also very important. And the remaining one will be the funding issues, whether it's reasonable for you to get some funding in the city you're in or in the system, because we need to fund our students. So I think funding will be the fourth thing I consider.
As a follow-up question, so are there also some city-wide or province-wide funding systems also?
Yeah, we have fundings from we have city-wide and province-wide funding, and I'm not quite sure, but I heard a lot from other peers that because like for those richer province or city, they will have more funding opportunities for universities there.
And what does the application package for institutions in China look like? Is it like very similar to others with CV, research statement, and so on?
Yeah, for me, for CHK Shenzhen, it's very similar to other places. So research statement, teaching statement, your CV, and 3 reference letters. These are the key parts.
And how did you approach your letter writers?
For me, it's a bit clear because I find my supervisors, so my PhD supervisor and postdoc supervisor, and I also find my host supervisor when I did my visiting. So yeah, it was a bit clear for me.
I understand. Okay. And how did you approach preparing the application materials? Did you, for example, look at existing proposals, learn the structure, and then try to come up with your own? Or
yeah, actually, that may be one thing I can share because sometimes when I check other peers or researchers' website, I will see their research statement or teaching statement there. So sometimes when I saw people that doing a similar topic as me, and they have some research statement, teaching statement stuff on their website, I will just download them, and then I will learn from those statements.
And after writing the first draft, did you get any feedback on your application materials?
Yeah, I send it to my peers, including you, and I also send it to my postdoc supervisor. I think my supervisor also helps me a lot. So help me like polish the wording and give me many suggestions on how to point out the things that I'm good at and how to say that make my personality more clear from my statement. Because usually I think in job market, it's very important to show your own personality. So what kind of person you are, what do you like, and what's your research style.
After that, how did you prepare for your job talks and also the one-on-one interviews?
For job talks, I start a bit late. Yeah, because for this year's job search, I wasn't too well prepared. I think I start 4 weeks before my first interview, and I try to, after like making the first draft of my presentation slides, I I did a rehearsal in my group here, and I think after that I received a lot of great suggestions from both my colleagues and my supervisor. And after that, I revised a lot. I would say it's a major revision. Yeah, I add a lot of things to connect those dots. So it will make the story looks more consistent and smooth. And after that, I also, in addition to like people in our group, I also send it to some of my peers in other places. Yeah, because another point is because I do research in the intersection of software engineering and AI, and my talk is about testing machine translation systems. So I also send my slides to some experts in NLP to let them take a look to see from NLP like people's perspective whether the things make sense. Because if you are doing intersection research, it's very likely that your talk will be evaluated by people from both sides. So we need to be careful that we should say something that satisfies both of them and make them feel that you have strong contribution. You have big contribution in both sides.
Yeah, that's a great takeaway for, I think, other people also working at the intersection of fields. And because you mentioned the job talk, so what was the duration of the job talk? Is it similar to other institutions where the job talk typically takes, let's say, 45, 50 minutes?
Yeah, my job talk was 45 minutes and 15 minutes for QA. So it's similar to other places.
Great. Yeah, we chatted now a bit about preparing for the interviews and also the application materials. I would say let's continue chatting about interviewing itself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, first of all, could you tell us a bit how the visit at the Chinese University of Hong Kong, Shenzhen looked like?
The visit is online. So first is that I will first give a seminar. That is a 45-minute talk and 15 minutes QA. And after that, I will have a one-on-one interview with the faculties there. And so for each interview, it's 30 minutes. So I interviewed with, as I remember, around 15 current faculty members there. Yeah, and after the last one, I will chat a bit with the dean, and that's all for the interview line.
And I know that you also interviewed with the campus in Hong Kong. And did you observe any differences between these two visits and your experience in general?
Yes, actually, the whole progress is a bit different. So for CHK Hong Kong, like before the screening part, they have another interview. It's kind of an interview with the current chairman. Mm-hmm. So that's the like kind of an extra one. And then both of them have screening. And after screening, both of them have the visit. So for now it's online. So both of them have the seminar part. Yeah, but for the meeting part, for the interview part with their faculty, is a bit different. So CHK Shenzhen is more like a typical US style. That's a list of one-on-one meetings. For CHK Hong Kong, what they try to do is let you meet with every faculty in the department. So they have several sections, And in each section, you will meet with around 6 to 8 faculty members there. Mm-hmm. So usually at the end, you meet with already like 95% of their current faculties. Yeah, and it will be more difficult for you to, if you want to prepare and know some of their backgrounds, because you need to like almost take a look at every faculty member.
Oh, well, that sounds intense. And how long does such a visit then take? I guess it's not possible to meet all of them in 1 or 2 days, right?
I heard that in CHK Hong Kong, usually they will have 2 days if it is on site. Mm-hmm. Because currently we do it online, so it was squeezed to 1 day. So for me, it's like I wake up super early in the morning, and I first meet with the dean, and then give the interview, and then meet with a list of sections with their faculty members, and at the end meet with the chairman again. It takes around five hours. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so for some universities, because you did your PhD at the Hong Kong campus, so for some universities, they basically don't want to hire their own PhD students. Was this also the possible concern at the Hong Kong campus when you interviewed there?
I think yes. And I think not only in Hong Kong, also in other places, if you want to interview with where you graduated from, it will be more difficult.
Yeah, and I mean, you already mentioned that the language of communication is English overall. So I'm also curious, the interviews, were they also in English or were they in Chinese whenever you were speaking with native Mandarin speakers?
Some of them are in English and some of them are in Chinese. I think that mainly depends on what kind of language the faculty want to use.
Yeah, great. We chatted now quite a bit about interviewing, so let's continue with the decision process. And there the first question is, how quickly did the Chinese University of Hong Kong, Shenzhen, come back to you after interviewing?
They do things super fast. Mm-hmm. So after the interview, I did my interview in late January this year. I think in early February, they contact me and told me that they would like to give me an offer. So it's pretty fast, maybe less than 2 weeks.
Okay, sounds like it. And can you also give us a rough overview of what the application package included? So I guess your salary, of course, also some startup funding you already mentioned.
Yeah, mainly the most important parts are salary, the startup funding. They also mentioned that they will nominate me to some fellowship in the university. I think these are the major part, and they will also cover part of my moving cost.
And did you negotiate your offer or did you accept it as is?
Yeah, I actually I negotiated with them, but I think it's a bit difficult for you to change or increase your salary or startup funding like a lot. So it's kind of they have a relatively fixed range for you, and I think that is also the case in Hong Kong. They will have a clear range for both salary and startup funding for the candidates. And usually, if you try to argue with them, maybe you can get a little bit improved for your salary, but it's not much, very little.
And I'm also curious, so about the salary, like to ask this in a general kind of way. So if you compare it, for example, with salaries that professors get in the US, like are the salaries, let's say, somewhat comparable? Can you just give us a very rough comparison?
I think the salary is comparable to like faculties in US. But the good thing is that our living cost is much lower.
Okay, that sounds really nice. And how did you make your decision? Was it like a very clear decision, or did you need to think some time over it? You also said you had a two-body situation, right? So I guess you also consulted with your partner.
Yeah, actually, it's not that easy for me to make the decision. Yeah, and as you mentioned, the two-body problem is also what I consider, and that's also one of the reasons that I choose CHK Shenzhen because my girlfriend is also working there as a faculty. So yeah, and actually CHK Shenzhen is one of the top places in my list, considering both location, ranking, funding, all this stuff. So at the end, I decided to go to CHK Shenzhen.
And you mentioned that your partner is also working there. So did you bring this up at any point during the interviewing season, or I guess you at least got some insights also from her about the institution and the faculty there?
So I didn't mention this point during the whole interview process. So I was thinking that I'm not sure whether this will be a good or bad thing for me to negotiate with them. For example, negotiating the salary or all these stuffs. So I didn't tell them this point. Yeah, and I do learn a lot from my girlfriend about the situations, all those stuffs in CHK Shenzhen. So actually, before accepting the offer, I already know quite a lot about their university and the mechanism there, how to get tenured, the teaching load, all this stuff. Actually, I'm pretty clear. Yeah, and that's also one of the main reasons that I choose CHK Shenzhen, because I know both like the good things and bad things there. So I think I can, how to say that? Yeah, because I know both the good things and bad things there. So I think even consider the downsides there, I still think it's a good choice. So that's why I make the final decision to go there.
Yeah, now we chatted about interviewing, so let's continue by wrapping up and again zooming out a bit. And then the first question that I had was, what kind of role did mentors in the whole process play?
I think my supervisor helps me a lot. So even before the job search, sometimes in our meeting, we would discuss how to plan for a good research project. And at that time, my supervisor already gave me some suggestions. For example, he will mention that you should not do this, or I suggest you not do this because it will not help a lot for your story in your job talk, something like that. So I think he already provided a lot of help even before my job search. So when I start my job search, he also give me a lot of suggestions, such as where could I go, where could I apply, and he also helped me polish my statements, the research statements and teaching statements, and also helped me formulate my job talk. Yeah, he gave me a lot of good suggestions. So I still remember that for the first rehearsal in our group, my job talk was pretty boring and contains too many contents. Yeah, and I think that in that rehearsal, I received a lot of suggestions, mainly from them and also from other group members. And I try to add more interesting things or stories to the job talk. So that also helped me a lot. And when I get invited for interview, my supervisor also helped me with the potential one-on-one questions. He will like share with me some of his own experience. Mm-hmm. And my PhD supervisor also helped me a lot with that, such as what kind of one-on-one interview questions I can prepare for, or what I can ask the faculty members if they mention that, do you have any questions? So I think I learned a lot from like both of my supervisors.
And do you have any kind of special anecdotes to tell, any memories that stuck with you?
For me, I don't have like so many funny or interesting moments, but like I have one terrible moment that is during our interview. A very senior faculty asked me that since you said you are doing practical research, so I'm curious that whether your research has been adopted by real world companies, or and how are they using your idea or your methodologies. And then he mentioned that for practical research direction, if your work is used by real world company, then it's a useful research. Otherwise, we call them useless research.
Okay.
So I found this question super terrible at that time. And I think I didn't answer it too well. So I just, at that time, I just, because I didn't prepare for this very sharp question. So I think for a few seconds, and then I told them that our approach is used by, for example, Tencent and IBM. And I just briefly mentioned that how they're using those proposed by our paper. Yeah, but if I have a second chance, actually I would prepare more like facts or like data. For example, what specific team are using our project, and how much do our projects improve their current product. I would try to give him some statistics, so to support my argument. But at that time, I just give him a very general response, saying that it was used by like company A, company B. So yeah.
One question also, did you get any other work done during this period?
Actually, no. It's like I feel that during my job search, I can only handle some of the projects that I add as a cooperator. So maybe I'm just one cooperator of the project. But for those projects that I lead, I have very little progress during my job search.
Yeah, that's relatable. And as a last question, do you have any general advice or conclusions from your job search?
Yeah, I think if like I do it again, one thing is that I only apply for a few universities for my case, because I have a clear preference on the location, because I want to be close to my family. So I only apply for a few. I think if I like redo this job search, I will apply for as many as possible, because although sometimes you may not like a specific university or city, it could be a good chance, or like, yeah, at least you could use that to negotiate with the universities that you like the most. So like I think the most important like experience for me is that, or suggestion from me is that try to apply as many as possible. Yeah, unless you really don't want to go there. Yeah.
I see. Okay, great. Then thank you so much for participating in this interviewing series, Pincha, and yeah, all the best for your new position.
Yeah. Thank you, Manu, for inviting me